We're grading Commander cards as submitted by you.
I'm your host, Joe Cherries.
I'm your host, Beezy, and that makes us the Nitpicking Nerds who love to eat food. And if you like to eat food and can empathize with other humans, I would suggest you consider checking out our Patreon, where you can feed us indirectly by giving us direct money. Makes the channel better also. It's kind of like a little bonus.
How else am I going to eat the Bella's Subs? If you don't know what the Bella's Subs is, it's a really good sub place that I have for lunch today, thanks to all of our amazing patrons.
Which I also had for dinner in a separate scenario.
It's a separate scenario that just happens to align, and we did not know this. It was unplanned, completely unplanned.
Like all our intros, very unscripted. And I have to shout out Dragon Shield, the best sleeves in the multiverse.
Good sleeves.
You thought it was gone? You're wrong. They are some of our best friends ever, and we would like to shout out one of their new products.
Because the simple fact of the matter is, they're an official sponsor of this channel here going forward. Not just Shuffle Scuffle, not just anything else. The whole channel sponsored by Dragon Shield, which have the best sleeves in the multiverse.
Good sleeves.
So let's talk about their new products. Some awesome new sleeves, new green sleeves. You can just get forest green and midnight blue. I don't know why I said green sleeves. I meant matte sleeves. You can get forest green, midnight blue, brand new colors. Got a dark blue, a dark green. They both look extremely good. They're on screen. You're looking at them right now.
It's a nice little aesthetic. Picture, it's like 7 p.m. You're in a walk, going through the woods. Decide to sit down and play Magic. What are you going to use? Those yellow sleeves? That does not fit the occasion. Pull out your midnight blue / forest green sleeves, and then you can vibe with the whole aesthetic and not stick out like a weirdo.
Yeah, and the simple fact of the matter is, guess what? It's one of the most popular new sleeves that Dragon Shield's been dropping. Dual mattes. On the back, you get that nice color, whatever you wanted. Right now, they just released 3 new colors. They released Valor, Might, and Wisdom, which are a green, blue, and an off-white, eggshell white, if you will. And all of these, like I said, you get the regular color on the back, and then the inside is a black sleeve. So even when you pick the white ones, these are not see-through sleeves. No matter what color you pick, light, dark, doesn't matter. You can't see through your sleeves because of the black back, and it creates a cool look when you have the cards.
Some sleeves kind of clash with the colors in your deck, and it's like, oh, if I have a mostly red deck and I have orange sleeves, it can look a little weird and the cards can get lost and it can be more confusing. Not with these, because they're black on the backside, and then you just go, oh, this is perfect, and I can look at my orange deck with my black front-facing sleeves. These are amazing. They're just the smoothest little just like this. Just so smooth, the smoothest shuffle.
Yes, if you haven't used new Dragon Shield and shuffle the deck, you haven't lived.
Do this.
Make sure to use our affiliate link in the description below. You go there and buy those sleeves, and you get to be supporting these nerds.
Yeah, tell them we sent you. Or you don't have to. You can just buy them, and they'll know we sent you because you're using our affiliate link.
You don't have to tell them we sent you. The link that you click tells them we sent you.
Then that thing that you just said tells me that you weren't listening to what I just said.
I heard what you just said, but you said it very poorly.
Thought I did a good job. How about the video that we're doing today?
All right, it is. We're going back to an old classic. We do this for new sets, right? Like every new set that comes out, we give it rankings based on what we think the cards will be. But we haven't done it in almost a year where we take your suggestions. You gave us 25 cards. We're going to grade them from F, unplayable garbage, to A. So let's go over the grades that we're going to be giving these cards. A is the best of the best. These are absolute staples of the format. You're going to see things like Ristic Study up here. You're not going to see us talk about many A's because it's hard to be an A. Those are the very best cards in this format. B's, best of their archetypes. These are still extremely good cards. They're just a little more narrow. They don't go in every single deck. They're not auto-includes, but they're still extremely good cards. C's, these are your average cards. Almost every deck is going to have a ton of C's in them when you build a deck. They're average, they're good, they're fine. They're not perfect, and you're not striving for C's, but you will play C's. D's, playable under the most specific of circumstances. So if your deck is playing let's say a discard theme, some of these cards might be playable if they deal with discard. Other than that, you're going to avoid playing D's most of the time. And F's are the only cards that we're going to tell you not to ever put into a commander deck because we think they're bad. We rarely give F's, but there are a few in this video.
Anything that isn't an F, we would recommend playing in certain scenarios.
Yes.
So it's not like a D is trash and you should avoid it. People like to completely ignore what we say in the beginning, so this is a nice extra long beginning for you to skip, and hopefully maybe they skip into the middle and they get to hear this part.
Exactly. That is exactly the point. Everything's playable except for Fs. Let's go right into this. We've got Commandeer, 7 mana, instant, take control of target non-creature spell. Pretty simple, but also has a little thing. Exile 2 blue cards from your hand, boom, do it for free.
For free. Yeah, this is going to be a perfect video. If you're ever wondering what our opinion on a certain card is, you can go into our Discord and help us get this list together, but B, this is going to be a bunch of random cards that you now know our opinion on, like Commandeer, which I think is super awesome. But I think if you're in the universe where you're playing a bunch of free spells and you're a heavy blue deck, this isn't the first one I go to.
Yeah, it's quite far down the line. Free counter magic is very, very, very strong. I mean, obviously that is true. Commandeer falls into a few problems. One, it requires 2 blue cards to be pitched. It is going down a lot of cards, and they both have to be blue. So you have to be a very, very heavy blue deck. And its hard cast is just non-existent because it's 7 mana. You're not holding up 7 mana on a reliable basis. This is just average in the middle, but obviously this card is a huge blowout. You're not just countering the spell, you're taking control of it, which can get you some of those cards back that you just spent to get this card.
Yeah, so if you cast it for free, normally a counter spell that requires you to pitch 2 says, okay, it's a 3-for-1 negative in your favor. But we're stealing it, so it's a 3-for-2, and depending on how big and impactful the spell is, it can be way better than that. So our plan is to make it way better than that, or save our butts from dying, or have a million cards in our hands and not even care, and just stop a random removal spell because we can afford to. Commandeer can be amazing, but I feel like it's a C.
Yeah, C. It's right in the middle. I think this is the perfect card to represent what a C is. It's right in the middle of like not great, not bad, just okay.
Can be entirely brutal because free things can't really be predicted as much.
Yes, that is very true. And Commandeer was sent by our Discord user, Neckit.
Next is Recurring Insight, submitted by Melon, just a regular Melon. Thank you for submitting this. It's 4 blue, and you draw equal to target opponent's hand size, and then it rebounds at your next upkeep, so you get to do it again for free.
Yes, so Recurring Insight is one of the best ways overall to just fill up your hand with an exuberant. Is that the right card? Exuberant. Exuberant? I think that's the right card. I think exuberant amount of cards. Over the top, ridiculous amount. You don't play this when you want to just refill your hand. That's not what this card does. This card is silly, dumb, over the top. It probably draws you somewhere between 10 and like
20,
14 cards. Not 20.
Somewhere between.
Almost never 20.
That averages out to 14.
Yes. And this card is just really good in that case. The problem with this, you have to usually discard after that. So make sure you're playing things like Thought Vessel and make sure you're playing things like Reliquary in a deck, Reliquary Tower in a deck like this. Gave it a C again. It's very average. It's very in the middle, but it obviously can do big, giant, good things.
It's expensive and it's a sorcery, so you don't get a lot of like wiggle room and there's not a lot of subtlety to the card. It's very blah. And the next turn, I'm going to go blah again. But a lot of the time, you're going to get 14 cards. So as long as you don't die before you draw your next 7, you'll be in a dominant position.
Yeah, and one of the things about this card that really just why I don't end up running it very much is there is an MDFC known as Seagate Restoration.
Kind of killed this card.
That has a very similar effect. Not the same. It is a similar effect, but it's a land on the other side. Oh my God, is that strong?
I'm playing that card every single time, and I haven't considered this card in a long time.
I just haven't played it. I mean, I do think it's a good card. I do think it's very playable, and I think it is strong. I just haven't put it in the deck.
Yeah, let's go on to Thorough Investigation from Scar. I think this is the Scar from Lion King. Thorough Investigation says whenever you attack, investigate, and then you can sack clues to venture into the dungeon. So it's like draw a card plus. You get the tiniest little bit of upside because you're going to go into the Lost Mine of Phalandelver and you're going to scry one, then make a treasure, then like draw a card eventually. And it's okay. But this is like white card draw. Back when we were like, white doesn't have any card draw, this would have been pretty cool. But white actually just has ways to draw cards that are not as hard to do and slow as this.
Yeah, I think this card is pretty rough. I'm not looking to put it in the deck. I've tried it. I put it into an Ishan deck, which doubles the attack trigger, so I get double the clues. Just wasn't a fan of this card. I never liked it. I took it out of the deck probably a week or two after putting it in because it didn't perform well. I just don't think this card does enough. I think getting 1 clue a turn is pretty weak sauce. You can do better than that when it comes to draw. You're still paying 2 to draw, so now you're paying like the rates don't have to match up on these cards, but it's like 5 mana you've drawn 1 card. 7 mana you've drawn 2 cards. It's like that rate doesn't have to match up. It doesn't have to be perfect. But it's absolutely horrendous in this card. Inventoring, I think, is pretty much nothing. You don't get anything from a dungeon until you've pretty much gotten through the whole thing, unless you're going through the actual good dungeon.
Which takes forever.
That's
you mean the Undercity, which you can't really go
Yeah,
to.
exactly. Unless you go in the Undercity, which you have to start before you start doing this because you can't just venture directly into it. There's just too much to make this card good. I'm off it. Play it in your adventure decks. Don't play it otherwise.
Yeah, it's definitely a D. Who's next?
Next is Maraschiello, and this is by Turning Tides, who suggested it. You can see the turns are tiding because we've gone to another white card, as you can see. This is X, white. If X is 5 or more, destroy all creatures, and then create X 1/1 Soldiers. This card is fine. I don't think this card is bad by any stretch of the imagination, but there's so many better board wipes. And this is rarely the best one for your deck. How many decks are you building where Maraschiello is like, that's what I want. That's the one I need as my board wipe? It's just not that many. This card gets a C- from me, not because it's bad, because it is completely good, playable, passable effect, but it's also not that good either.
It's a card I would actually almost never recommend to anybody. Not only is it completely just mediocre and replaceable in general, as far as whiteboard wipes go, it just got like strictly upgraded in Phyrexia with the White Sun's Twilight, which gains you life and makes toxic tokens.
Yeah, if you care about toxic, or if you don't care about the fact that they can't block, that is just a much better card.
And they're also artifacts.
And they are also artifacts, so there is just more synergy to be had with this card. There is going to be times when I would suggest this over it. Again, like there's Soldier Tribal. There's little tiny things. And it's weird because this card is a C-. This isn't a D. But
You'll never see it.
You're just not going to see it because there's other options.
Let's go on to a frustrating little enchantment creature. It's Perplexing Chimera, and when a person casts a spell, you can exchange Perplexing Chimera with the spell. So they now have it. It doesn't actually go away. You're going to have to be satisfied with whatever spell you got, because now the same person can do the same thing to you, and this thing is just annoying and kind of does some work. Like, it's actually a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, this one was suggested by Discord user Max Sternberg, who is a genius, because this card is actually secretly very, very good. The key to this card, the thing you have to be doing, is you need a way to consistently flicker it from the board. So that means you have to have Mist-Metal Witch. That means you have to have Rune. That means you have to have Amanatu. If you have one of these 3 ways to flicker it back to your side, all of a sudden, every go around the table, you're taking the very best spell, doing whatever you want with it, and then bringing it right back to yourself. The card gets extremely silly, extremely fast, and it's extremely annoying.
Yeah, it's more like a soft lock because players can't cast their great spells, so you don't really even have to use it as much. You can, and maybe you will because it's free, but players are not. You're just going to lock them out of the game. Like,
Yeah.
They just have to kill this or they can't play. And how are they supposed to kill it when you can now take their kill spell and redirect it at something else? They have to board wipe.
Yeah, I give this card a B-. It is honestly a very, very strong Magic card that runs the game. It's weird how much a Perplexing Chimera runs the game. It's weird. You wouldn't think it. If you looked at this card and read it, you'd be like, that's garbage. Who's playing that garbage? Wait till it's on the battlefield while you're playing. You're going to be like, I don't want to cast anything in the hat.
I'm not casting this Doomblade.
All right, let's move on to Hidden Path from Doyle. Hidden Path is 2 green, 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 green. All green creatures have Forest Walk. Enchantment from Legends. Doyle, stop telling me this card is good, my friend. I'm sorry, this card is not good. This card is horrible. I am so low on this. 1, it gives all green creatures.
And you're playing green.
And you're playing green, almost guaranteeing you have a forest, meaning you can be attacked by any green creatures unblockable. It doesn't pump your creatures at all. It's 6 mana. There's nothing here on this card I want to be playing. I gave it an F. I stone cold would never put this card into a deck. Now, I know you love it, Doyle. I'm sorry I have to poop on your little card. But I'm pooping on your little card.
We've pooped on it, and now we're going on to Bribery from Splenda Daddy. Bribery steals your opponent's best creature for 5 mana and just puts it right on the battlefield under your control from their deck. This is kind of dependent on what people are playing, but almost always guaranteed, I would say. You're getting your mana's worth. You're going to get some 5, 6, 7 drop, and it's going to be well worth the cost.
Oh, yeah. Bribery is a very strong Magic card. It kind of the reason it sits in the middle here at a C+ is because you're relying on your opponent's deck. If this card did your own deck, 5 mana, put your best creature into play.
That's dumb.
It would be very dumb. It's already dumb doing it to your opponent. I mean, you actually have more choice of cards if you're aware of what your opponents are playing, which is kind of silly to think about. It's probably one of the best steal spells in the whole game that doesn't just take from the battlefield. This card is very, very strong, and like you said, it's dependent on what you're playing against. If your opponents are playing Avacens, this card is absurd. If your opponents are only playing small 1-dork elves, then this card's terrible.
Yeah, I think it falls off the higher power you get, which is weird because you'd think that the creatures are better to steal, but everything gets more low cost, and combos and stuff start existing, and you just don't end up wanting to spend 5 mana on this. So I think C+ is perfectly fine.
Yeah, C+, not quite anything I'm looking to shove into a deck. It's not really It's not synergistic with anything.
It can't.
It really can't because it's your opponent's deck. But it is a cool card. Actually, it does have synergy with, I said nothing, but what's this? Agent of Treachery. It actually has synergy with Agent of Treachery.
It does. That's the one. Steal your stuff is not a. It's not really a strategy. It's not like stealing two things is synergy. But Agent does want you to steal things, so that works. Let's go to Soul Swallower from Support Crispy. I don't know who Crispy is, but apparently they need some support, so go support Crispy. This card is like a 3/3 trample, and it's got Delirium, and it can get counters on it. What's the deal with this one?
This card is so bad, my friend. I'm sorry. Even if it's a 4-mana 6/6, and you're gonna have Delirium right away almost every single time. What? That's not that good.
Why am I doing that?
Yeah.
What's in it for me?
Yeah, exactly. And this thing is boltable. Don't forget.
That's irrelevant. What is that? Who cares?
I just thought it was funny. This thing is just not that good. It's pretty bad. I think this is an F. I would never put this in a deck. Even if you always have Delirium, I don't think this card is very good, and you don't. But there is going to be times you have this card in your hand and you don't have Delirium, and it's extra bad. It is an F-. Is a card that I would tell you not only to not touch, but don't even think about touching it if you don't have Delirium every game.
Yeah, this is a card that it's one of the category of cards where I've seen my opponents play cards like this, and then they wonder on turn 7 why they're sitting there with nothing in play. It's because this is the exact type of card that gets swept up in some kind of Soul Shatter or Flashback Marauder, and then you just go, boom, Soul Swallower, and then it just dies to something random. No one even cares about it. It happens to die, and you're just like, well, I just wasted my entire turn. I just got time walked.
Yeah,
I got nothing.
Yeah, pretty bad card. Soul Swallower, not a card we suggest playing. Next, we have Rankle, Master of Pranks. Do you see who suggested this one, BZ?
It's Tim Rude. It's our personal friend who's been on Shuffle Scuffle.
Yes, he actually took the time to go into our Discord and put this message in there. So, yes, it is Rankle, Master of Pranks. I think this card overall pretty bad in the 99. Not a card I'm looking to play most of the time. It does have good synergy with this card, and it has good synergy with maybe making them sacrifice stuff. But overall, it's a pretty weak Magic card. I don't want to ever do the draw mode. That's group hug. That's not
don't
good.
do that.
Yeah, the drawing is not very good. Making everybody discard and making everybody sack is card advantage for you and can be good. And though this is a card with some little synergies, I'm just never going to suggest playing it. D+. It's fine. Just doesn't really go in many places.
I kind of like Rankle more than Cherries does. I'm not going to play it very often, but I'd probably give it like a C-. We can disagree a little bit.
It's fine. D+, C-. It's still not that great of a card, but it is playable.
Tim will appreciate my C grade.
Begrudgingly playable.
Mm-hmm. Let's go to No Mercy suggested by Gray59. Okay, No Mercy is an enchantment for 4 mana that says if a creature deals combat damage to you, destroy it. It looks so much better and more threatening than it actually is. And I think we're going to give this one a D, and we can explain why.
I don't think this one even looks threatening. I just think this card, it protects you from attacks a little bit. Overall, but players can just wait, destroy it, go around it, attack when it doesn't matter, send a bunch of little 1/1s at you that don't matter. And yeah, you're going to lose some creatures if you attack into them, but you only attack into them when it matters now. Sure. So what this does ultimately is prevent the chip damage, right? Like you're not going to take chip damage because players are going to choose to attack other places with creatures that are important that would do chip damage. Is preventing chip damage worth an entire card? I would just say no.
No, I don't think this card is any good. We can debate all day about Ghostly Prison, but I think this is so much worse than that. Like, the big swings, if they hit you with a bunch of creatures, you die. All those triggers for No Mercy that are going to destroy their stuff, it gets exiled. It doesn't actually prevent them from doing anything. They just kill you, and then all the triggers get exiled, and they don't lose their dudes.
I agree. I like Ghostly Prison and Propaganda as cards better than No Mercy.
Yeah, let's go to Lightning Bolt. Oh, boy, this is what you were talking about. It was boltable. You look down on the script. This is from Mana Drain Lover. Mana Drain, don't counter Lightning Bolt. It's not good value. It deals 3 damage for red mana. A lot of some controversy around this one. It's a card I never really play, but a lot of people play Lightning Bolt in Commander.
Yeah, Lightning Bolt's super interesting because I think it is playable. I think this card is right in the middle. I think it's a C. Playable, not great, not bad. It does kill a lot of things, and it is obviously very mana efficient. The problem is when Lightning Bolt is the best in games, just like in any Magic game. It's the turn 1, turn 2 plays where you kill something in order to get a tempo advantage. That's when Lightning Bolt is at its best, and the fact that it goes to face when you need it to, that's almost never relevant in Commander. And the fact that this card is usually going to be drawn later into a game of Commander, it just kind of gets worse and worse, and it hits less and less. It's not bad. I think it is a playable card. I think it's pretty good, and I think if you're in mono red where your removal is extremely light, it is a good option. once you move into any other color, I just feel like Lightning Bolt just slides right off my radar.
White and blue have a bunch of one mana ways to just kill a creature, period. Black has 0 mana ways to do it. And green can start getting into like the Beast Withins and the Kenris transformations. And it's just like, I don't really ever play Lightning Bolt, but I could see a scenario. I would probably give this a D myself, but we can say C, whatever.
Yeah, D plus, C minus. It's not that good. It's not a terrible Magic card, though. Next, a card that's been impressing me. I've just been happy with this card is Morbid Opportunist, and it's been suggested by Franzy Wanzy. I gave this one a C plus. I just think it's a good card, period. I don't think it's like broken, busted, because you can only do it once per turn. But the fact that you can kill your opponent's stuff and draw cards pushes this card in a way I did not expect. Because when I saw this card, I thought it's pretty bad.
It's worse than Grim Horospex, right? That's what we were comparing it to.
Yeah, it still is worse than Grim Horospex. Like I'm not gonna put it on level. But then you took a look at this card. It's actually just really good, because as soon as you get the 1-for-1, you're already playing some 1-for-1s in your deck. As soon as you spend that 1-for-1 and you draw that card, this card's replaced itself, and now anything from there is value. Opponents will use removal. You will use removal. Even when a board wipe happens, this will draw you 1 card. It is a strong Magic card that I like in heavy spot removal decks.
Yeah, it's definitely impressed me too. I think C plus is fair. I really don't think it's like anything too special or like must have. But it does do work, and you can play it, and I think it's proved itself to be a playable card.
Yeah, exactly. Heavy removal decks is where I'm playing it. Next.
Oh, God Sire.
God Sire. Can you tell me what this thing's mana cost is?
Yeah, it's 4 red, green, white.
It's one of those. I know it's a double pip of one of them. And this was suggested by Peanut the Blobfish, and God Sire is one of the coolest unplayable cards of all time.
Yeah.
This card is so awesome. It's an 8/8 vigilance.
Makes 8/8s.
Tap it to make 8/8s. I mean, you can attack for 8 and then tap it to make an 8/8 and just give it a D minus. It's not very good. For the big stuff you can be playing, there's just much, much better options. And as much as I love Godsire. Don't let me tell you how much this card is not very good in Commander. Take away from the point that this is one of the coolest gigantic cards ever. Its name alone, Godsire, is like an amazing, awesome name. It's just weak.
It was also in the first batch of Mythics ever.
Yeah, it does go infinite. Now, I know you have to be playing a 4-color deck. It goes infinite with Intruder Alarm.
Wow. Now that sure is something. But your 8 drops and your 7 drops and your 9 drops, I don't think you should be able to play them and have them not be able to impact the game. Like, we're talking big sorcery, big spell, enters the battlefield, dies, trigger it right away. This is just like, just you wait until next turn. I'm going to make an 8/8.
But wait, it's even a bigger problem with it. Like, you're right about all that. It's not even this, it won't impact the board right away. It's, even when you get to untap,
you don't impact the board right
away. You attack. It can be chump luck. This thing doesn't have trample. Oh my god, that's the real issue with this card. It'd be much more playable with trample. It'd probably be a D. But
I'm surprised you didn't just give this an F.
No, I give it a D minus. I think it is slightly playable. It's not a card I'm ever going to tell you to play, but I think it has slight synergies in decks.
Let's go to sudden spoiling. No is the person who wants to know what we think of sudden spoiling, and I think it's a D. This is a card that has split second, which is probably the main appeal, and it turns all of somebody's creatures into 0/2s with no abilities. So you can definitely get a little bit of blowout stuff. It's kind of like the Polymorphous Jest version of, or Black's version of that card. I just think this effect is so narrow, it feels kind of like Aetherized to me, where like sometimes it'll be really good, and it'll be like the best fog you ever had, or it'll like wipe somebody's board because there's an Elesh Norn in play. But I think most of the time you're going to look at this and you're going to go, I don't really want to hold this up. I don't know what's going on that I would love to hold this up. It just is not a good card to me.
Yeah, so this card is a card that you don't see be bad because it's sitting in your opponent's hand, rotting, doing nothing for turns and turns on end. And then, this just kind of happened recently with Polymorphous
Jest.
Yeah, Polymorphous Jest. And like all of a sudden our friend played it. It's like, oh my God, it was amazing. It was a blow up. It's like, it's because it only gets played when it's a blowout.
It can only be a blowout.
Yeah, it's never anything in between. And this card will do good things some of the time, but it's going to rot and be bad in your hand most of the time. Give it a D. It's really lacking on synergy, though I will say if you have a deck that plays a lot of like deal 2 to creatures, Masquerworm, Elesh Norn, Pyroclasm type effects. You're playing all of these kind of effects. These kind of cards do get a huge boost. This is probably the best one, being that it has split second.
Yeah, so it's one of those cards that requires somebody to be doing something amazing, But it's very specific. It's not even like Ink Shield where it's like, oh, I have to hold this up and it does nothing unless my opponent's attacking you with everything. This is like your opponent could be trying to win the game and this doesn't even affect them at all. Like, it's just a card that I don't think it needs to be more of a catch-all like Teferi's Protection for me to want to play it.
Yeah, so if they do something like a Crater of Behemoth and give +20/+20 to the creatures, then swing everything at you and you go, sudden spoilings, gotcha. You actually didn't get them. You set the creature's base power toughness to 0-2. They still have +20/+20. You're dead.
Right. They don't have trample, but you're dead.
You're just dead. Like, you were going to die, and now you're going to die anyway. It won't stop them.
Yeah, it does not stop all of the types of lethal combat. Let's go to Heartwood Storyteller. This is from Dom. And Dom says, what about a 1 green 2/3 that says whenever someone casts a non-creature spell, each opponent of that person draws a card? This is one of those cards that gets out of my control so quickly that I don't ever want to play it. I think this is basically a group hug card, and I don't know a way for me to take advantage of it more than everybody else at the table.
Exactly. I just gave this card an F, easy peasy. Even if you're a player who casts no non-creatures, you're playing creatures all the time, that's it. It's still, this card is not very good because I don't want to play the spells to say I draw one, two of my opponents draw one. That's not very good, and that's what this card is every time its ability goes off. Gave it an F. I seriously think you should just avoid this card at all costs. I do not think it's good.
Unless you're Group Hug, but Group Hug, I just, the more I think about it, it's not a strategy. It's just like a way to play. It's like a different way to play Commander, but I don't think this really does anything other than bury you in cards eventually.
Yeah, the bad card, don't play it. Next, Expressive Iteration. Card recently banned in Legacy.
That's just a big achievement.
Jaden, Skyborn, and Luna both suggested this card. It is, look at the top 3 cards, one in your hand, exile one, you can cast that one till end of turn, and one on the bottom. This is 2 mana, draw 2, and you get to choose from the top 3 cards. Card is incredibly good. I think vastly underplayed in Commander. I think if you can afford to slot this into your blue-white deck, especially Spellslinger, you should. This is just a good Magic card, period, and I gave it a B. I think it is just very, very good in Commander.
Blue-red spells decks, you play this all day. I think that's basically it, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can...
I'm not saying that's the only place you play it, but that's all I really have to say about it. It's like blue-red spells decks, love this card.
This is a very good Magic card. It has been proven from format to format, and it does translate to Commander as long as your curve isn't too high. If you're playing a deck with the average mana value around 4, I would suggest avoiding a card like this because you really want to make sure you can, if you don't hit land, you're able to cast one of the spells you hit. And the average mana value of 4, you had to be casting this with 6 mana.
And don't ever play this on turn 2.
Don't play this on turn 2. Play it on turn 3. That is a very good place to play it. There is a good chance a land is in your top 3.
Well, it's your lucky day, Turning Tides, because we normally don't pick the same person to suggest 2 cards, but we got you again. Apex of Power. 100 mana, and it exiles the top 10 cards of your library and gives you 10 mana of any one color to cast them with.
I played this card. I think this card is so cool, but it sucks. I had to be real. This card is really bad. I gave it a D. The main issue with this card is one thing. It has one big, glaring, huge problem, and that is that it only makes 1 color of mana. That kills this card so hard. I mean, if you're playing, you have to be playing a mono red deck, and then you can consider this. But if you're not, it's like, all right, you're going to tap off of this spell. This is not a spell you're multiple spelling with, so you're gonna have to rely on the mana you get. If you're in a green red deck, that's just not very good. You can only cast half the spells you're gonna be flipping.
Yeah, it's really weird. I don't think this card is worth the 87 mana you want to pay for it. I think if you're mono red, this is not the big explosive thing you want to do.
Yeah, it's fine. I think this card isn't bad, but I also don't think this card is good at the same time.
Go for Mystic Mastery instead.
There's just bigger, better, splashier, giant mana spells than this. This card, coolness level A+, D for actual strength of card.
Classic D. Moving on to Sire of Stagnation from J. Run Desi. It's a 4-mana 4/7 or a 5/7, and it's got Devoid. No one cares about Devoid. When opponents play lands, you get to exile the top 2 cards of their library, and you draw 2 cards. So this is fixed or fairer version of Consecrated Sphinx. And if you want to play it like that, it's great. What it mostly says, though, as long as you're not on turn 4, is opponents just aren't going to play lands. But that still is tangible advantage for you.
This card is really, really good. It's really, really annoying. I give this card a B-. The main issue is, like you said, is super in control. Unlike Consecrated Sphinx, where they can't stop themselves from drawing cards, they can stop themselves from playing lands, and they will in the case where they can afford to.
Whatever's worse for you.
Yes, and also, the worst thing about this card is it's miserably unfun. It's such an unfun card. Give it a B-. That doesn't affect how powerful it is, how unfun it is, but I give it a B- because your opponents are in control of this card too much for it to be much better than that.
It's also blue-black, so you have to like play this alongside Consecrated Sphinx, or you choose not to play Consecrated Sphinx. It's in a really weird spot where there's a card that costs the exact same amount and is like 10 times better.
Yeah.
And so this card doesn't see a lot of play, but I still think it's pretty good.
It's good. I think the card is undoubtedly good, but miserable. Don't put it. If your friends don't like unfun cards, don't play this card. Next, we have Felidar Retreat. We've talked about this card a lot on this channel. 3 and a white for an enchantment landfall. You either get a 2/2 cat beast or 2/2, or you give your creatures +1/+1 counters and vigilance. This card is incredibly good, and the last time we rated it, I believe we gave it like a C because we were talking about it from the when we rated it from the start review like 2 years ago now. This card's a B+. This is one of the best cards for a landfall archetype, and it fits outside of the landfall archetype because it is that good. If you're going wide, any go wide strategy you can just play this. This thing makes tokens.
It goes wide and then pays you off.
It does both. This card is never bad at any point in the game. You play it as long as you have lands to play. This card is amazing. Is your board huge? Okay. Add power to that by putting counters. Is your board have nothing on it? Okay, make 2/2 cats. Honestly, one of the best landfall cards, and just extends past that.
They took a Retreat to Emeria, which is a card I've seen people play. If you're playing Retreat to Emeria, cut it straight up for Felidar Retreat. It's like strictly better on 7 levels. So Munchie, great suggestion. We love talking about Felidar Retreat.
B+. B+. Next, we have a card that I don't like, Cling to Dust. Suggested by Sturban73. I really think this card is bad. So 1 mana, exile a card from a graveyard. If it's a creature, you gain 3 life. If it's a non-creature, you draw a card. This card's bad.
It also escapes.
It also escapes for 4 mana, and that's where I think the issue is with this card. On the front side, it's terrible. You're not getting anything out of it. So we're not going to play the card Cremate, right? Cremate's a better card than this.
And no one plays that.
And no one plays that on the front side. So the escape now is where we're going to get our value from this card. We have to exile 4 cards from our graveyard. That's a lot of cards, and pay 4 mana. This effect is never worth 4 mana, and I know it's something you can do late game. It's something to use excess mana on, but it is just too expensive. You're not going to ever run out of enough mana, and Cling to Dust just isn't good enough to be worth holding up to get the blowout ever.
And I'm not going to chalk it up as graveyard hate. I don't like... This is a graveyard hate card that doesn't want you to take the thing that actually is going to come out of graveyards the most, which is creatures. I never want to hit a creature to gain 3 life. That's like a weird 1-for-1 that you could have just used a different spell on. This is like, if you can get a creature and draw a card, it's like, ooh, gotcha, that feels pretty good for me. Gaining the 3 life does not feel good for me. Yeah. So I'm hitting a card that probably isn't going to come out of the graveyard to draw. That's just a random cantrip that doesn't give me any extra, and now I can like cast it for 1 million later. I just don't.
Yeah.
If it said... always draw, and if it was like 3 mana to escape, we'd be talking about something different.
I also want to combine the fact that what I think is super important about we talk about graveyard exile being super important and having graveyard hate. You want repeatable, reusable, and exiling most of their graveyard. Like something like a Scavenging Ooze, that's slow and repeatable, but it can get everything you need out of the graveyard. Same thing with like a Lion Sash. It can't do that. You can't do that with Cling to Dust. You don't have enough cards in your deck to get rid of their whole graveyard.
Yeah, maybe if you're really like some kind of weird spellslinger deck, just play Cremate instead. Don't even worry about the escape.
Yeah, I agree with you completely on that. It's not very good. Next, we have Vigor, which is 3 green for a 6/6. If creatures you control would take damage, prevent it and put that many +1/+1 counters on. This one was suggested by
Seahanger.
This one is cool. Another one of the cards that just kind of defies what it actually is and just is a cool, amazing, awesome card. Combine this with Blasphemous Act. How do you ever lose? You don't. You just win the game. Give it a D+. It's fine. It's playable. It's annoying and hard to deal with at times if you don't have the right removal spells, but it doesn't really impact the board that much.
Classic card that says just wait till my next turn, and you might not see a return on this, even if you get to attack with it a couple times. If you get through 6 or 12 damage and you don't get to have those big blowouts or be able to synergize with it in some way, you just feel like you wasted all your mana. This does have combos though, with like Walking Ballista and Hardened Scales. That's going to win you the game. So stuff like that, get it in there all day. That can be some of your top end for counters decks. But other than that, I don't really like this thing.
Yeah, one of the issues also with this card on top of what you just said is so what it can kind of do is let you attack with everything you have at anything. Doesn't matter what the boards are. They have 13/13s. You have 1/1 Sentiment.
No risk.
No risk because they'll block. but there actually is risk.
Because what if Vigor dies?
What if Vigor dies? Then you just attacked all your 1/1s and the 13/13s, and they die, and now you lose the game.
Right. So even on blocks, I don't feel safe enough to actually take advantage of the text on the card. So what am I doing with it? I don't want to attack with my creatures, and I basically treat my other creatures as though this thing doesn't exist because I don't want to risk them if this thing dies. So then why do we even have this thing?
Yeah, exactly. It's tough. It's not a very good card. Next, MDFC, Tangled Florahedron. It's a tapped green land on the back, and on the front, we have a 2-mana 1/1 that taps for green mana. This was suggested by OP.
What a suggestion.
And guess what? This card is OP. It is actually just an MDFC. MDFCs are very, very good. This one's a mana dork. It's strong. I'm going to play it whenever I have the synergy to play it. It's in my Henzi deck right now. I mean, every MDFC except for like the really bad ones are in like some of my decks, and Tangled Florahedron isn't one of the bad ones. B-, super playable, super good.
I will say, this is, as far as MDFCs go, this is the least versatile MDFC ever printed because it either makes mana or it makes mana. So it might not look as appealing, but assuming we're hitting our land drops and everything, we can either hit our land drops because of this card, or we have some extra lands in our hand, play this early and now just ramp into things, or trigger things like Beast Whisper later in the game. If you're not going to trigger anything, just play it as a land drop and then it taps for mana anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Tangled Florahedron is good. Like you said, it's the least versatile of all the...
It will only tap for mana.
It will only tap for mana. It's still very, very good.
And it's adorable.
Next, we have Great Sword of Tyr, suggested by Omega Orion. This card's bad. I'm sorry, my friend.
Shortcut.
You were talking about how you thought this card, it was overperforming for you, and it might play very well. And I cannot speak to your experiences with this card. It could play well. It could do well. It is 2 mana to play, 1 to equip, and then when that creature attacks, it gets a +1/+1 counter and taps down a defender.
It's the common from Baldur's Gate, right?
It's the common, uncommon, I believe, from Baldur's Gate, or the common, one or the other. I gave this a D-. I just don't think you want to play this almost anywhere. It doesn't give you nearly enough. Tapping down 1 blocker is almost never enough to guarantee a safe passage through with a creature. I'm off this card.
I think this is trending in the right direction for what I'm looking for in equipment. Like, I want to boost my creature and make it harder to block, and this is better than your average, like, random equipment that's thrown into a set because it's designed for Commander. I like it. I just don't know when I would ever slot it in. It feels like there's not a right home for it. Even in equipment decks, you have, like, some of the really mega powerful stuff, like, even the swords of X and Y, and, like, even GT I might just play over this. So I don't think there's a home for it. It's missing some text.
Yeah, agreed. It's just not quite there. Not quite enough. Next, an actual decent card.
Really annoying.
You're going to be surprised. It's Rotting Rats. 1 and a black for a rat. When it comes in, each player discards a card, and then you can just use its, what's this graveyard? Unearth. That's what it's called. BC didn't whisper that. You didn't hear that. Unearth to bring it back and do the exact same thing again. This card's actually just good. You need discard synergies. You need to be using and taking advantage of this in some way. This is one of the best cards that reads this way.
I think a lot more graveyard decks could be playing this card and have it be working really well for them. You want giant creatures in the graveyard, you want to reanimate them, this gets them out of your hand and puts them in there while actually taking out real resources for everybody else. It doesn't just move it from resource A to resource B like in your deck. They're losing a card. And so this thing, the fact that it can do it twice, the fact that you can mill it over or sacrifice it and just do it again, and you have obviously full control. You don't have to cast this when you don't want to. So this thing is just going to be great. It's actually really annoying.
Yeah, and this one was suggested by Lockleaf. Forgot to say that.
Good suggestion. I really like Rotting Rats. I think I will challenge people to play it more.
It's a cool card to at least talk about too. Yeah. This one gets a C+. So it's not quite the B range because I think it is, 1, incredibly niche. 2, you need to really be sure that it's working for you. Because if everyone's just discarding a card and you don't have any advantage from that, this card's not doing anything.
Kind of just neutral. I mean, you're getting more cards than you discarded, but everybody's down 1. I will say also Madness decks will like this.
I would never play everybody discards a card in the deck without synergy. I think that's just bad.
Because you have to tap mana for it.
Yeah, exactly. It costs you mana to make everyone discard a card. No, thank you.
Next suggestion. It's Toski, Bearer of Secrets, submitted by Pope Unban Umezawa's Jitte. Is that a suggestion for the Pope to unban Umezawa's Jitte, or they're the Pope of unbanning Umezawa's Jitte?
No, I can actually tell you exactly what it is. Their name has been Unban Umezawa's Jitte for a while, and for some reason, I don't remember what happened in chat. People were asking if they could be Pope, and I told everyone yes. So there's multiple popes in our chat now.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, there's multiple popes.
Multiple popes. And in our Discord.
In our Discord. So join Discord and then ask me, can I be Pope? And I will say yes.
We will say yes. And to get back to Toski, it's a 4-mana 1/1 that can't be countered and indestructible, and hitting players draws your cards. So you can draw up to 3 per combat. Toski looks way better than it plays. It kind of plays out a little mediocre. It does have to attack every turn, so you can't just block, but that doesn't really impact how great this card is. I just think I kind of expected a little bit more. It doesn't stack up well to like the Beast Whisperers for me, and I don't play this as much as I thought I would. Still think it can be solid, though. It's not like a bad card.
Yeah, I'd give this card a C. It's middle of the road. It's not bad. It's definitely not bad. But I'm also, like BZ said, I've been extremely disappointed by this card. I think the first card you should play if you want this effect is Orin Frost Viper.
Definitely like Frostfang, yeah.
Frostfang, whatever it's called. Orin Frost Viper, Frostfang, whichever one. They're both on screen. Not the one that it only does it for itself.
One of them is like Scroll Thief. Don't play that one.
Yeah, don't play Scroll Thief. Play the other one. Whenever any attacking creature has Death Touch and when it deals combat damage, draw a card. That's a really, really good card. It gives people incentives not to block. It is super strong. Whereas Toski, you're incentivizing everyone to block so you don't draw cards, and it never gets through. And indestructible 1/1s just die.
Actually, are more vulnerable.
I thought a 1-mana 1/1 indestructible would stay on the field more often. No. You know how many times Toxic Deluge comes down?
And Brash Taunter, too, is the same way. I thought it would stick more, and it just doesn't.
It just doesn't, yeah. They just have 1 toughness, and they just die to any -1/-1 effect. And there's not a lot of them, but they are around. So
yeah, the Yawgmoths and the Massacre Worms and the Elishnorns, they're running around.
Yeah, they are. Those cards just exist, and they're just in the format. But I suggest if you're going to play Toski, play Orin Frostfang first, and then go from there. If you want a second one of the effect, then I would play Toski.
Yeah. And if you want a second one of this video, I think maybe it's helpful if you get more commander ratings. Guess what? Blast from the past. Go check out this video, which you probably, statistically, have not seen, and you will get more ratings from us.
I don't know how statistically true that is, but it is true. Peace out, Tribe Scouts.